In 2011, I bought my very first investment property with a couple of mates in Sydney, which was a 2-bedroom unit in, honestly, one of the worst buildings you can ever imagine on the south side of Sydney. Somehow, between then and now, I've been able to build a property portfolio that has not just created long-term financial freedom for my family, but given me choices that I could never have imagined as a 24-year-old growing up in Sydney. I hope as we go through today's video, you can have a bit of a laugh at my expense as I talk about the roller coaster, which was my journey to financial freedom. Now, the first thing I wanted to say today is when I was getting started, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Nobody in my immediate family had invested in property before. It wasn't like today where there's incredible information on YouTube, on podcasts, and heaps of different books to choose from. In fact, there was a couple of books back then, but they were all about getting rich quick and building this massive property portfolio from people that were way older than me that I couldn't really relate to. Since that very, very first unit in Miranda, I've bought houses, I've built houses, I've done subdivisions, I've built granny flats, I've done countless renovations. And what I can genuinely say looking back is I've enjoyed every single part of the journey as much as sometimes I've been curled up in a ball in the shower crying. Now, for me personally, one of the biggest lessons that I've learned and wanted to share with you all is it took fucking hard work. Anybody that tells you the journey from something, which I literally had $10 in my bank account when I was 23 to where I am today was easy is kidding themselves. My journey and your journey to financial freedom will constantly test you. It'll require you to get outside your box. It'll make you confront things that you didn't even know were inside you, like all of the fear and traumas and things that you've gone through over the course of your life. And most of the time, you're going to feel uncomfortable and nervous and not really knowing if you're making the right decisions at the start or not. What I can confidently say now is all of the hard work was worth it. The hundreds of investing books that I've read, the 10,000 plus hours that I've spent physically in the market, and the incredible people. I think I've spoke to more than 5,000 investors now over the last 13 years personally, which I've collected little ideas from that have completely changed my life. I think one of the things that massively helped me is I always had a vision when I was younger at 24 to get to the position that I'm in now as a 38-year-old. I was in the surf recently with one of my best mates that I lived with when I was at uni, and he said, could you ever have imagined that where you were back then, you'd be where you are today? And I just looked at him straight away, point blank, and I'm like, absolutely, because there's no way that this could have happened without me having a vision of my future and wanting my life financially to be better down the line. When I was younger, I used to literally set goals every single year. And every single year I had a category of goals, which was investing and wealth creation. And I'd always be doing one of three things, which was saving a deposit, buying a property, or paying off debt so that I could continue to move forward. And if I look back on my goals list, every single year for the last 14 years, it's had my next immediate step to get me from where I was to financial freedom at this age. Now, my vision had nothing to do even back then, or maybe a little bit back then actually. I'd be lying if I said that money wasn't important to me, because it absolutely is, because money is effectively choices in our lives sooner. But my vision and when I used to shut my eyes had nothing to do with a passive income or a certain number of properties or a certain amount of wealth created or zeros in a bank account, and it had everything to do with how I was living. And for me, it's always been about spending time with my family, being there for my kids, and being a really active, present parent growing up. As they grow up, it was about spending time with the people that I care about and traveling and looking after my health and eating good food and moving regularly and surfing. You know, as a 24-year-old getting started, I was just so hungry and hustling so hard and working multiple jobs and doing everything I needed to. And for many, many, many years, not really getting changed from like 60 to 100 hours of work per week. But as I've gotten older and my kids have gotten older, I've realized that firstly, that wasn't sustainable and I got completely cooked and burnt out from it. But also that that's not who I truly am. That was just what I had to be at that stage to get to this one now. And I know many, many of you are in that place right now where you're working hard and you're focusing. I spoke to a guy on a strategy session this week that was literally working 2 jobs full-time, one for Deloitte in his day job as an accountant, 60 hours a week, and the other one full-time, another 40 hours a week in hospitality, just to save every single cent that he could make so that he could get a deposit ready and get into the property market in the next 12 months. A big transition for me though personally was when that vision or that idea that I do want to be financially free in my future was broken down into a plan on how to achieve it. Now, I wish I could say that at the start of my journey, my plan was the right one. But the plan back then at like 24 to sort of 30 was just basically buy as many properties as the bank would lend to me. And the more properties, the more you're winning type vibe. There wasn't a whole lot of this is what best practice looks like there is now. Obviously these days I look at the market, I look at pockets of the market, I look at suburbs, I look at streets within suburbs, I look at all of the key performance indicators, I look at the history, I look at the potential in the future, and I look at about 100 data points before I make any decision. But back when I was kicking things off, it was kind of like just get stuck in. Every time I got the green light, I'd go buy something else. It really wasn't, I suppose, until I lost a big chunk of money just before my 30th birthday. I think I lost $40,000 from a really, really bad piece of advice and deal that I went into, that I was like, hang on, there has to be more of a method to this madness. Now, at that time, everyone I'd talked to, all of the books that I'd read, all the stuff I'd listened to, all the programs I'd paid for, all the people I'd paid for as coaches, all of my mentors had never gone, this is how the structure of real estate works, and here's the things that you can apply that will get you above average results short and longer term. So I had to slowly like create that for myself. And I remember one night it was about 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. I'm like, I'm not going to stop reading. And I'd been reading for about 15 hours straight until I figure this out. There has to be a method to this madness. There has to be someone that's looked at global real estate cycles for a long time and figured out a way that this system works. It can't all just be chance. And then I found Phil Anderson's work, Fred Harrison's work, Simon Priestley's work, deeper stuff by CoreLogic, deeper stuff by SQM. And I went on a tangent of spending the last 8 years obsessively going through the data to the point where now I understand loosely, no one has a crystal ball, but loosely how to pick winners, how to profile suburbs, how to find the best properties in the most undervalued markets, how to time things, when to buy, when to hold, when to sell, when to be in leverage, when to be in cash, and how to take advantage of sentiment and confidence as the market moves through stages of the cycle, when to be truly fearful, and when people are just stressing out like they have been for the last year in Australia as interest rates go up. So I've done heaps of videos on this stuff, guys. There's some really good ones that we've done in the last 12 months on our YouTube channel and podcast if you want to go find them. Some of the interesting ones are like the 50 years worth of data stuff, what happens during periods of inflation, interest rates, all of that sort of stuff too. But the method to the madness was that I realized after buying 9 properties, and I wish I could say I knew better before this, but I really didn't. I had a general guide of what works, but it was my 9th property, I remember it, and I'd read this stuff, and I remember waking up that morning and saying to my wife, we've got to sell all our properties, we've made a mistake. And I was like, no. And so we went through the process of going from like 9 at that time back down to 2. We'd sold a couple on the journey to like leverage up and things like that at different times, but we went down to 2, which smashed my ego. It was a massive identity death from being like, hey, I'm a successful investor that's going to be wealthy in the future, to, hey, we've got the wrong assets and we can do this much better. And by the way, I don't want to be financially secure at 70 and bust my ass for my whole life. I want to be financially free now at 40. And to do that, we need a completely different strategy of not just growth, but great cash flow and a whole bunch of other things as well. And so that was like really good to go through. And I can confidently say that we've accumulated the most incredible portfolio as we rebuilt since that point. And I really went down the rabbit hole of like, this is my plan. This is how I'm going to be there. This is where I'm going to be. And this is what I need to do every step of the way. And that's one of the big things that we help clients with. We share those ideas that have worked for me around planning with them. and give them ideas. And then those people can go sanity check them with friends, family members, and their advisors to make sure they're heading in the right direction as well. Now, another one of the biggest, lessons / realizations I've had is that it is never you doing this on your own. And basically everybody that has done well in any walk in life, one of my favorite quotes is, why stand when you can stand on the shoulders of giants? Like, there are people like me putting this content out there completely free so that you can make better decisions. And all the way through my journey, I've just been so blessed and so looked after by people coming into my life at perfectly the right time and teaching me the lessons that I needed to know at that time. Now, I've had a whole bunch of the wrong people come in and give me really bad advice and learned some brutal lessons the hard way, like losing some money, obviously, on that site, like my granny flat burning down once, like getting really poor property management advice, really poor accounting advice, really, really, really bad even building and pest advice. But what I've learned from those lessons and from talking to like literally over 5,000 people through the business as well as outside of the business is that, there are lessons and there are rules and there's a plan that you can follow if you want to be financially free in a 15 to 20 year period that have worked for hundreds of years and that many, many successful people have applied that'll change your life. Now, one of the most important things that happened after I had that like crazy night where I found Phil's work was a client came into my life named Dave. Now, at that time, Dave had never earned more than $100,000 per year in his job, and he owned his own home plus 3 investments in Sydney. And I'd talked to a lot of people by that point, and I was like, this is unusual. Me being me, I'm like, can I take you out for lunch? And he'd actually engaged our business to help him buy a house and build a granny flat in Brisbane at that time. Now, at that time, I already owned houses and granny flats myself. I think I had 2 of them at that point. But he came in and he was like, over the last 25 years, I've bought a property once every 5 to 7 years. I've just been on principal and interest over that period of time, and I basically own all of them outright now. When the granny flat changes came in Sydney 12, 15 years ago, whenever they did, I built a granny flat on each of my 3 investments. And he's like, I've just chipped away at it. Now, at that time when he decided to partner with me so that I could help him do the same thing in Brisbane, he was already sitting on almost 150 grand a year of passive income. This was like 5, 6 years ago plus, maybe even longer. And, this was basically, I said, well, why Brisbane? I knew why Brisbane at that point, but I said, why for him? And he's because he said, because I believe that some of these suburbs that you've educated me about, like you do, should double in value. Now, that suburb that I bought for him has doubled in value, and rents have gone up by more than 50% in that suburb, which statistically we both knew would happen. And I'm like, why one more property? And he's like, because I know what works and I want 200K per year of passive income by the time I hit 65, which he'd be getting close to now. Now, bumping into a dude like that, as well as all of the other coaches, mentors, friends, colleagues, and clients that I've worked with, has just helped me collect ideas that have completely changed my life and completely changed my direction as an investor, which takes me into my next point in terms of how I got to 17 properties. And let me say, I don't own 17 now. That sounds horrendous. I've sold almost all of them. Just got a tiny, tiny portfolio now of quality properties that once I own them outright in the future might give me 150, 200 grand a year of income, but it's not something to write home about. And I know there's a lot of you listening to this that want to go like way further than I have. And I fully wish you all the best on that. I just want the simplest little simple life, which is also why we've halved our business and we only take on a maximum of 10 new clients each month now, just because I want the best for the people we work with. And I want to spend a whole lot of time with the other people I care about outside of this as well. But in terms of the next thing, it's this idea of constantly learning. So I picked up my first couple of property books. I think I read 3 before I finished uni between the age of sort of 23 and 24. And my father-in-law at that time, or at this time, he was just my girlfriend at the time's dad, was a successful investor, and he knew a whole bunch of people too. And so he was in my ear all the time that investing would be a great thing to do. And I just bugged him for literally the last 13 years straight at every barbecue about this stuff. But it's just this idea of constantly learning. Now, some people like me, I learn very visually. I love YouTube because of that. Got a lot of mates that love podcasts. I also love reading because it slows me down, and I know how hard it is for someone to sit down for 10 years and think about something and then finally put it in a book over 1 or 2 years and really make it like as good as they can. For other people, and myself included, I love seeking people out that are so much further ahead of me and picking their brain. I think that's one of the ways that I've learned the most from all of these different people I've spoke to. But if you have this concept and this like thought process of you just constantly grow in the right direction and you constantly take snippets of information. Now, I've never been one of those people that's like, this guy says this is the truth, I'm just going to blindly follow it. I'm a guy that collects different ideas from thousands of people and then listens to my intuition and my logic and my experience and then goes out there and makes it happen for myself, my way. And that's why my concept of financial freedom is capital growth, cash flow, timing, tax benefits, and using history as your guide, as well as a world-class team of advisors, because standing on those giant shoulders will get you there much faster than trying to figure it out like 99% of people do on their own. The other thing that I do that has helped me on my journey as I work towards financial freedom is I learn from my mistakes. Now, I am not very emotionally aware. I'm not great at like communicating a lot of things that are meaningful to me. I'm not great always at asking the right questions. I've banged my head into many, many walls and made the same mistake time and time again. So I'll just put a big asterisk on that one. Like, I'm not perfect. You know, I don't even sometimes know how I've gotten to this position, to be honest with you, because it's like been such an incredible, like one step at a time thing. I often don't think back on like the shit that I bought 17 properties with my wife somehow. I don't even know how. But when I like think about it, you know, I do learn, and I rarely make the same mistake twice. I'll definitely make another mistake, which looks different, but is probably the same thing. But I'm learning as I move forward, and I've made every mistake with the advisors you can. I used to used to blindly trust people a little bit. I know I just said that I didn't, but I've probably learned to not. You know, I've gone after quick money. I've tried to get rich quick. I've got really bad advice from people like bank managers, accountants, advisors, and I've trusted people that I thought had my best interests at heart, which absolutely gave no fucks about me. So at the end of the day, like if you can learn from each mistake that you make, and some of the mistakes are simple, like some of the mistakes I've made are like getting overloaded with information and thinking that more information or more time on realestate.com or more time driving around on the weekends actually going to help, where actually I could have just sat down for a few hours, identified which market, which state, which city, which pocket of that city, which suburbs, and then focused obsessively on one suburb and got myself a way better result. But instead, back in the old days, I thought that talking to agents and looking at places and jumping on realestate.com and looking at forums and going down the get rich quick, like this is the next boom place location, was the right way to do it. And I know now that it's not. The average person on forums and not professionally in the market like we are, buying, you know, $50 to $100 million a year worth of property, really is just going off what everyone else is saying. And the problem with what everyone else is saying, from having done this every single week now for 9 years, and personally every single week for 13 or 14, is the average person is 18 months behind what's really happening. And the average person that sort of knows their stuff that's not in the industry is 9 months behind. You know, a lot of the content out there that other people put out is so old that it's not even relevant with what's really going on anymore. And the game has changed. You know, property used to be this like semi-consistent thing. Now property is like spikes in prices with periods of flat, followed by spikes in pricing. And it's driven by only two things: international money supply and how people feel about what's going to happen next. And most people are shitting themselves right now, where the next thing, according to Phil Anderson and Fred Harrison, is a boom like we've never seen before. And what will happen as we get through those boom conditions, all the FOMO will kick in. people that do nothing in the next 2 to 3 years will come rushing in too late. And like always, they'll miss the market again, which is fine if you're holding for 15 years. But if, like me, part of your investment strategy is making money short term to reduce your risk and increase your potential returns, then you just can't do that. You cannot do what the average person's trying to do. Now, the last thing to sort of wrap up this video and just a few of the lessons that I've learned, obviously for those 10 clients that we take on each month, I've recorded content just for them, which they receive that we don't publish online, which is really the tips, tricks, skills, and the really deep stuff that not just helps them understand what we're helping them do, but helps them to fish for themselves so that they become the best investors they can possibly be and better than 99.9% of Australian investors today. But the big lesson that I've learned last is really this idea of like being brave. And like, even though I'm scared of everything all the time and I've got this incredibly low risk profile and almost like probably borderline level of anxiety and, paranoia at all times about, because I came from absolutely nothing, having a couple of properties and having that debt in the bank and seeing it, like it physically makes me like not feel good because I'm like, own your own home outright and only do one thing and chip away at your job for 45 years is kind of like the model that I've seen from everyone that I grew up with in Sydney. But really, like, as soon as I started to read these books and talk to people, I realized like if it was possible for that person and they're not like super, super, super clever or super different than you or me, then it might be possible for me. And that idea of it might be possible, to having a vision that it is possible, to turning it into a plan that might work, to seeing the plan out despite all the ups and downs, and then to being in this position now where I could continue to buy a property and I absolutely will, but if I never did anything again, I'd be okay and my kids would be okay in their lifetime as well. Not wealthy or anything, but just okay and not having to go to the pension like I've seen so many people's grandparents, including one of my own, do, is a big thing. And I suppose like that idea of like really knowing what I wanted and being confident enough to say, I can have it. And then just praying and hoping that it's going to work out and asking it to work out. And when you're in the dumps and when you're going through that black night of the soul and everything looks against you, just trusting that there'll be light again and that it will all work out for you is like changed my life. And, I've lost part of my identity and my ego through this journey. Like the person that started this versus the person I'm now are not even the same person, but like I like me more now. Like I'm doing things now that I could have only ever dreamed of back then. In the last couple of years, we've given more than $60,000 to a local charity. I could never have imagined doing that back in the day. And I truly believe that the more you have, the more you have to give. I've been able to like work with my brother, my sister-in-law, like my sister, my mum, and get all of them fully set up for the future. I've been able to help countless friends and family members get into investing and make hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 5 years that they never would have made inside their jobs if they hadn't begun to invest. And I've been able to share these ideas with people like yourself that want the best and believe that you can have it, but just don't quite have the knowledge, skills, or plan, or mentor, or coach, which I hope we can become for you on your journey to financial freedom. The big thing for me that most investors don't do is know when's enough's enough. So for me, I didn't want to keep working with 20 people every month. And some weeks we can get 40 people literally hitting us up a week to get started with our business, and we'll take on 2 or 3. Like, we really, really, really want to work with people like you and I who share the same values and, obviously want to achieve financial freedom and financial peace, but also really, really want to enjoy the journey and love it, and that aren't just like a one-dimensional robot that's trying to get wealthy and just bust their ass, but want to spend time with the people they care about, want to travel, want to volunteer, want to use their skills and their money once they're set up to contribute like we are to making the world a better place. And, that want to like test themselves in this lifetime and put themselves in that uncomfortable position that 99% of people aren't, that keep playing small and really go for that life of choices and freedom and to replace your income, and not to replace it at 70 and, think that getting on a jet ski at 70 is going to be fun, but fucking loving the entire journey all the way through. So if you are like me and you're one of those people that really can see your future heading in a positive direction and you want to buy a property in the next 12 months that sets you up for where you want to be in the future, then I'd love to offer you a one-on-one strategy session. All you have to do is go to www.pumpedonproperty.com, hit that free strategy session button. I also realized that my editor, Sam, is always putting that link below, so I'm pointing at nothing right now. But hey, that's how we roll here. That's how I roll. I know that it's always going to be down there, but I always point up for some reason. And then we can talk about where you are right now, where you'd like to be longer term. We can educate you on the market. I can share some of the ideas that have worked for people like myself or the client that I mentioned before, Dave. You can take those ideas and tips and tricks and go and smash it on your own. Or maybe you choose us and we choose you as one of the small number of people we work with each month, and we can hold each other's hands and we can enjoy this journey together on our way to financial freedom. But either way, we wish you all the best as you continue to move forward. And I hope you don't have to go through it as hard a way as I have. But looking back, it's all been worth it and it's all been a ride.
Woo! That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Getting
Have a
cool,
spin.
bro. Yeah. Oh, sweaty. So sweaty. Oh, that's good. That's so nice. Eh? Oh.